Hey Midland, it's Selena and What's Up in the City Planning Edition. A little different this time. I'm here with Grant Murschel, Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Midland, and we're talking about Zoning Text Amendment 161, which was recently approved by City Council, giving the Planning Commission more authority over approving certain site plans and eliminating the need for these site plans to go to City Council. So Grant, let's start by talking a little bit about what kind of developments does this amendment oversee?
Right. So this is a very small portion of the overall developments that take place within the community in a given year. It's a site plan, and that's a specific name within the state law that enables municipalities to have a site plan development process. And that relates to uses that are permitted by right within a zoning district. And so when you look at the entire basket of development approvals for the community, you have things like new water main approvals or capital improvements. You may have conditional use permits like a brand new drive-through restaurant. You may have zoning considerations to change a parcel from RB multiple family to RC regional commercial like we discussed recently at Council on Bay City Road. And all of that is kind of the basket of things that can be considered for a development process in the community. And so site plans are permitted uses by right on a zoning district, and state law says that they have to meet an objective criteria, and when those objective criteria are met, they're entitled to approval.
So this is a very narrow level of site plans, correct?
It is.
So other developments that are approved by Planning Commission would still have the opportunity to come to City Council, right?
They would, yes. So in the case of rezoning considerations, that would go to Planning Commission. They would formulate a recommendation, go on to City Council for final approval. A conditional use permit, like the drive-through restaurant example I gave, or even a particular development that was a little bit popular or controversial a few years back for senior housing on Eastman Avenue, that's a conditional use permit approval. It would go to the Planning Commission, receive a recommendation, and then City Council would have final approval on that. That objective set of criteria, all of that is done by City Council too, and so if there are changes to the text of the zoning ordinance that would go in front of Planning Commission, they would formulate a recommendation and City Council would still approve that. Nothing on those fronts have changed.
So while this is new to the Midland community, is this a common practice in other municipalities across Michigan?
It is. The vast majority of communities do have the administrative task of site plan approval delegated down to a lower body like the Planning Commission, and in some cases, like in the case of the City of Kalamazoo, they actually have staff approval for all permitted use site plans. And so we, prior to this change, we were one of the few communities that still had our legislative body approve site plans. And that was a bit unique because, of course, the way that the state law enables communities to do this type of review, which is the Zoning Enabling Act at the state level, they allow for communities to really focus in, the legislative body focus in on big picture policy discussions that need to take place. So considerations for stormwater or for zoning and those types of things, all of that is really intended to be the legislative body's decision making, and administrative tasks like site plans would be delegated down. That
makes sense. Part of the conversation at the City Council level was a concern that public input was going to be eliminated from this process, and that's still a major factor even at the Planning Commission level. Mm-hmm. So how does public comment and public input play into this new process for site plan approval?
Right. So nothing has changed when it comes to the Planning Commission's public input process for site plans. There still will be a mailing notice that goes out to all properties within 300 feet. There's going to be a notice that still goes into the Midland Daily News, and then we still will use all of our other means of getting the information out to the community, which includes the email blasts through the Agenda Center and Notify Me functions on the city's website. And all of that will still take place, and there'll still be a noticed and a held public hearing on site plans at the Planning Commission. So if someone does want to come and they want to talk about a particular site plan, whether they're in support or they're in opposition or they simply want more information, they can do that still at the same way like they have been at the Planning Commission level.
And finally, what's the city's overall objective in going this route? What do you hope to see as a part of this new process being now put into place?
Right. Well, that's kind of a multifaceted question, or really an answer that we kind of have a few different things that we want to achieve as part of this change. One is, as I mentioned, the intentionality behind having the legislative body, and in our case, City Council, be more focused on big picture, high-level policy discussions. A lot of times when we've had site plans that have gone in front of the commission in the last couple of years, we've wanted to focus the discussion and the deliberation on specific criteria and whether or not we think that criteria is the best in that particular location. One example would be, do we have the right ordinance requirements for new developments that are maybe not in the 100-year floodplain but are very close to the 100-year floodplain? You can't change the criteria when a site plan is coming through the process. You have to act on it with the criteria that have been established. And so what we're hoping to do is actually, by having Planning Commission do the approvals on these site plans, that'll allow us to have bigger discussions about those criteria and be able to focus in at that policy level at the City Council level. Another thing that we want to make sure happens is when people come to Midland and they want to invest in Midland, we want to make sure that they know that the process that they will have is going to be very concise and very specific to the criteria that we have. There has been occasion where we've had some big picture discussions, like I mentioned, when we should have been focusing in on the specific criteria, and that can cause unease for folks that are looking to do investment within communities. And people talk within that group of people and development across the state, and so they know which communities are easy to come and get approvals through, and it's a very straight and concise and understandable process, and which one are a little bit prone to maybe political process or other subjective criteria that shouldn't be part of that decision making. So this is an opportunity for the community to, again, be a really good place for business to come, for people to make investments, and be able to recognize that if I have a permitted use on a zoning district, I will go forward with a very concise process, and I will have objectives that I'll need to meet, and then I'll be able to get approved at that time.
So continuing to be a community of choice through our planning process.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks, Grant, and thank you for watching.